recommend the data price, insatiable and appetite. Wanna try? Hi, hello, welcome back. Today is another recent reads because I've been on a reading kick this past few months because I have so many things to do, but procrastination through reading is more important. The first one I listened on audiobook, and it's An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. This was just okay. It was a fae romance story which was very cottagecore. It gave me all the cottagecore vibes. The descriptions were lovely and the magic was kind of cool. It really reminded me of some of the atmosphere of some Ghibli movies. So it was great. I feel like the love story was really rushed. The book, it's not that long, and the pacing of this love story was just kind of all over the place. It was not horrible. It was just meh. Then I read something really disappointing, and it's The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. So, in order, I watched the TV show, which was fantastic. I really liked it. And I thought, well, I could watch the 1998 or 1999 movie about this book called Haunting. It was so camp, so kitsch, so incredibly stupid, and the ending was kind of boring. And I was like, well, I want to read the book to see if the TV show or the movie are, because they were very different, which one is the closest to the book? And unfortunately, it was the 90s movie. The pacing was terrible. The main characters was insufferable, and kind of like she changed personality every 10 pages or so, and none of the characters were kind of that great. So was the story. The hunting was not chilling, nor atmospherical, nor nothing. It was kind of boring. Next one is another disappointment, is Wilder Girls by Rory Powers. I picked it up because of the ecofiction and sapphic recommendations, because I love ecofiction so much. A good example would be Jack Vandermeer. And so when I heard the synopsis of the story of this, like, how can I say it without saying the word pandemic? There's a virus that is mutating these girls that are closed in a college, and they don't know what to do because at one point the shipments of food and everything else stopped coming. I liked some part of this story. I think the pacing in the beginning was really great, and some of the descriptions of the mutation of the girls who are hunting, they were so cool. And then we switched perspectives, and those newer ones were awful. No, they were not awful, but they were kind of goofy in comparison. I was like, why is this in this story? Why is the story going in this direction? Because it's lacking all the tension of the first part. Finally, my first manga for this last period of time, and my first physical read, is Okine by Sakurako. If you remembered, in my last recent reads, I read Okine, or The Lanterns Festival by Sakurako. These are short stories. Some of them are about this giant dog, some of them are about the gods of luck and them living in the modern times, and the last stories are about this giant dog meeting the tiniest dog, which was very wholesome. The drawing is kind of too simple, I think. If you can see that, it's almost too simplistic. Okine was the perfect balance between simplistic and cool. This, I think, was a little bit too simple, but still, they were very wholesome. They brightened up my day. I really liked it. Now we get to the first true disappointment of this pile, because this graphic novel is beautiful. This is an Italian graphic novel called Neon Brothers by Alice Berti. The premise is so ridiculous, I love it. After Brexit, the world is divided into the corporation, which manages all the jobs, and organized crime. And there's nothing in between because the corporation has all the power. And so this group of really weird and kind of misfits get together to compete in some of the organized crimes competition to get a sum of money. The character design for this graphic novel, as you can see, is fucking cool. I loved it. The problem is it was that this was probably better as a series, like multiple volumes of it, but I know time and money restrictions are a thing for graphic novels because the pacing was horrible. So many important things were glossed over. I was like, why can't you show it to me? Especially if it's a graphic novel, you have to show it to me. You can't just tell me this happened. Also, the ending was kind of what I expected. I read this kind of ending in a lot of other graphic novels and books, so it was kind of predictable. Not a terrible graphic novel, but it's so disappointing because the colors and the drawings is so cool. Then I'm so happy because I finally finished this book. I'm so happy. It is probably one of my favorites of this year. This is Bridesheads Revisited by Evelyn Watt. I've talked about this book so many times on my channel because I loved it so much. The prose in this book, it's superb. Superb! You follow a family substantially, but from the point of view of an external character that befriends Sebastian, the younger son, and the protagonist gets sucked into this family of decaying wealth because they still have a lot of money, but they are losing a lot of money to maintain their status. And there's this one section of the book in which they visit Venice, and this is the only description of Venice from a foreigner that I actually liked. Evelyn Watt understood my city so much. This was 5 stars. I loved it so much. Next, I have to read it, sorry, because it's a manga and it has not been translated yet. It's called Kararikega by Rinteku. This is a love story between 2 rivaling teachers at a prep school in Japan. And it's so funny because they're so salty with each other. One teaches math and the other one, I think, teaches geography. And they're all about like humanities versus scientific classes. It is so cute. It's just 1 volume. Okay, next to another audiobook. This is Last Tang Standing by Lauren Ho. I picked it up on a whim because it sounded fun, and then it wasn't. Mostly because the protagonist, who really hates millennials, even though she is a millennial, is really irritating and really mean, even to her friends. I really liked her search for love and the pressure that millennium of tradition is putting on her to get married and have kids because she's almost in her 30s, and she is a very career-driven woman, so she doesn't want to get married right now. Her as a character was kind of awful. She was really mean and judgmental to people who she didn't know, and even to her friends. And the last thing that really irritated me about this novel is that her mother is the one pressuring her to get married and do all the things. And I get that, again, there's a millennium of tradition on their shoulders, but there's one thing that the mother does to her daughter, which I think it's unredeemable because it's illegal. Then the people on TikTok actually recommended this book to me, which was so cute. I read This Book is Gay by James Stassen, the updated 2018 version and the Italian version because it differs from country to country. This is a compendium of all the basic information that you have to know about the LGBTQ+ community, especially focused on gay and lesbians and bisexual people. So it's more so on the sexuality than the identity, but there's also that part. It was kind of lacking on the non-binary department, but it was still really good in its talk about identity, about sexuality, and I think this is the perfect book that you could get your parents if you're LGBTQ+ kid and your parents is struggling to comprehend your identity or sexuality or what they have to do. There are specific chapters dedicated to parents. I think it was lovely. Again, it kind of lacked in the non-binary department, so in the identity department, even though the author is a transgender man. On a complete whim, I didn't know this manga. I found it online, I bought it, all 11 volumes, because I couldn't stop reading it. And then I realized that those 11 volumes are not a complete series, it's just part 1. I read all the Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto volumes. It was fucking great. It was so cool, so heartbreaking, because all my favorite characters died, like completed, yeeted out of existence. So we live in a world in which society's greatest fears, like the fear of the dark, the fear of gun arms, materialize into devils that can possess people and create a lot of havoc, kill a lot of people. And there is this organization that uses people who can kind of use that devil power to kill other devils. And there's also this devil in particular that is the, I think, bullet devil or the gun devil, that nobody knows how it is made, like what's his appearance or their appearance, but they kill a lot of people in such a short amount of times. And the protagonist makes a deal with the chainsaw devil. The thing that I loved so much about this manga is the characterization, because the protagonist has one brain cell, one, and it's dedicated to boobs. And I loved him so much. I loved him a lot. His friendships with other people were so wholesome, because he's just like this dumbass kid who made a deal with the chainsaw devil, not even knowing what he was doing. And like, I loved it so much. Every single character I got attached to died, but it was still satisfying. I loved it so much. I can't wait for part 2. Then I was on a manga kick. I read another manga called Nosmire by Arima Arashi. It is a high school romance. It was so wholesome, so healthy, so cute. I loved it a lot. It is an LGBTQ romance. I think, can I say an Achillean romance as opposed to a sapphic romance? I like that word a lot. I don't know if I can use it, but it's two guys. After my manga kick, I got on a graphic novel kick because I got a lot of unread graphic novels. So I read Padova by Miguel Villa. This is a graphic novel about my birth town, which was very weird to see because nobody ever knows about my birth town. It's called Padova. This graphic novel talks about kind of the generation that came before me, so the turning of the millennium, so the millennials, and the awful people that live in our society and that I saw every day going back and forth from high school, and I prayed to whichever deity in the sky that I wouldn't turn out like that when I was 30, because these are all the terrible, monstrous people that you never get to see because they never do something that it's illegal, but they're so shitty to their friends, to other people. They're disrespectful. They are the people that like would misgender every trans person ever. It was kind of painful to read this through because it doesn't have an happy ending. It's just like, people like this exist. This is such a real graphic novel. It was so awful to see. And then for another graphic novel that was unsettling, but for another reason, this was so great. This was Unfollow by Lucas Julige. It was so great. You follow a creature called Earth Boy that gets incarnated into a really young kid. And he uses social media to spread awareness about the impact that our society is having on nature and how we can prevent the earth from going total apeshit. So he uses social media and starts a ecological movement to incite people to do their part. But the people misrepresent what he's saying and create a cult around him. So everything starts to spiral out of control. Even though they're doing something great for the environment, they're not doing something great for society. So It was so well crafted, it was great. The panels and the drawings, it is so complex, it is so tense. My heart was pounding when reading this graphic novel. It was so great. It won a lot of prizes, rightfully so. I read another untranslated manga, but this was actually really, really good. It was called Shinonome Tante e Iber Rock by Teretsumi John. It follows this really wacky detective agency that works on ghosts and missing cats. And that's about it. It was very, very cool. There's also kind of like a love story, and it's, for once, drawn really, really great. The drawings are amazing. The story, even though it's just one volume, it is so complex and I think so bittersweet. I really, really liked it. Next, you might recognize this book by the look on my face. This is Come Anima Mai by Rossana Saldana. This was a One Direction fanfiction turned into book. Awful. This was awful. I hated it so much because it was such wasted potential. I've got a vlog all about this book, whichever part of the screen is going to be, but every time I think about this book, my hands shake like, that Arnold meme, like, yeah, next. Since the animation show has been added to Italian Netflix, I reread Heaven's Official Blessing by Mo Shang-Tong. This is a Chinese web novel split into, I think it's 4 or 5 books. It's 4,000 pages long, and I reread it in a week. It talks about Chinese deities. I don't want to spoil you on anything, but the characters are the ones you're going to love forever. Like the kind you get attached to so much that you just want to protect. This is a heavy love story with mystery elements that are so well crafted, and it's a love story that spans 8,000 years. So you have your deities, you have your humans, you have your ghosts, you have all the fun. The problem is, it is so heart-shattering. The first time I read it, I cried like a fountain, and the second time I cried even harder because it was so sad. Not everything is sad. It's actually really silly at times and really, really hilarious. It's still probably one of my favorite novels ever. This also has like LGBTQ plus themes, and I loved it. I love everything this author releases, and I'm still hoping for a 4th book. Then we get into the silly territory. This, you may not recognize this because we have it, I think, only in Italy. This is called the Harmony Collection. These are kind of pre-smut stories. It is a collection almost always in pink about silly love stories filled with tropes, and it's like kind of a build-up to a sex scene, but then it's censored because woo, too risque. So this was called The Count's Prize by Christina Hollis. It was the most like not the other girls, bad boy meets good girl book that I've ever read, ever. It's in the text, I'm not like the other girls because I have like a messy bun and work clothes. But it was so hilarious. I laughed so much at this book. It's so ridiculous, and I think it knows that it is. So it was not that bad. Then I finished a graphic novel duology that I really hope is going to get turned into a trilogy. This is Il Migliore de Male by Violetta Rovetto and Marco Tarquini. This is a kind of a supernatural, superpower graphic novel. This is the 2nd volume. The first one was so great, and the drawings were kind of meh. The drawings are still kind of meh, but the story didn't turn out how I wanted it to be, so I was kind of disappointed. But it was still good. It was still good. It talks about this group of kids, and they suddenly get superpowers, and there's this like big factory that controls all the waters in the city, and they think that there's something going on with that. I still need answers, so I am hoping in a 3rd volume, but this was really good. This was really, really good. Then I got a random whim to read a mystery novel, so I listened to the audiobook for The Guest List by Lucy Foley, in which there is a wedding and everybody hates each other secretly, and everybody is secretly hooked up with each other, and then someone ends up dead. My problem with the story was that while the mystery was kind of compelling, even though I knew who'd done it, the death occurs at the end. And it's kind of like, why? This fucks up the pace. Why can't you have it at the beginning and not have the exposition come first and then the death? I would have preferred the death to come first, so it was more shocking when you got to the end. So I was like, yeah, this is a meh mystery novel. Even though it was kind of fucked up what the characters did. Then I listened to a great audiobook. I rediscovered my love for audiobooks. I listened to A Honeymoon for One by Kira Andrews. This was so sweet. You have two protagonists. One is hard of hearing, and he lost his hearing to a degenerative illness when he was already an adult. And he gets home one day and finds his fiancée that he's supposed to marry the next day cheating on him with his best friend. So he decides to go on their honeymoon to spy him because his fiancée was so shitty to him. And so he embarks on this journey to Australia, in which he meets this other protagonist that is like this divorcee father, super sweet, kind of like an older man, and they fall in love and they discover, one, something about his sexuality, and the other, the power of true love. And it was so wholesome. I loved it so much. It was so cute. It was also the first time I read about a protagonist that was hard of hearing that lost part of his hearing later in his life. It was very interesting. Unfortunately, this period of time was filled with a lot of meh books. And another one is This Time Will Be Different by Misa Sugiura. This book talked about so many great and important things about cultural appropriation and racism against Asian Americans and a lot of interesting stuff. But it was kind of overshadowed by having a protagonist that was very dull in comparison to all the background characters, which were very vivid and three-dimensional, but that made me want to see the story from their point of view and not the protagonist. She grows, which was great, but I just wish the focus was on the main theme of this story, which was to save this flower shop from going bankrupt. This was like a family-owned flower shop for many generations. So I would have loved the story to focus on that and not on all the other plot points, which seemed a little less important and also not really resolved at the end. Then I read something really, really important for me. This is Lettere a me stessa dopo la mia prima volta by Kabina Wakata. You might recognize this author because she wrote My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. This is after her first time, so after her lesbian experience with loneliness, in which she hires an escort. This is the after. This is her diary, coping with depression, having oppressive parents, feeling really alone, and not really knowing how to cope with her loneliness, be it with alcohol or just shutting herself in her house. It was very hard to read about this, even though it's in manga form. This is a manga memoir. It was kind of hard because some of her thoughts were my thoughts at one point and still are. But it helped me a lot. It helped me a lot because it is a hopeful story. And it's not just a story, this is our life, but it's hopeful even in the bleakest moments. I know that I can do it. And so can you. So can you. And then to cheer me up, I read a webtoon that was printed in Italy with the title My Son is Probably Gay by Okura. This is volume 1. It was so wholesome. This made me so happy that it exists. So you follow the story of a normal family from the point of view of the mother, who kind of gets the whiff that her son is gay. Probably, we don't know. He hasn't come out, like he hasn't. So she starts to quietly support him in his crush on his classmate and in his decisions in life, like quietly supporting him, letting him know that everything is okay, everything is alright, if he wants to come out or not. She just like really supports his son, and it was so cute. It was everything that I want for every LGBTQ plus kid in the world. The last book that I read as of recently is Gideon the Ninth. It was very cool. The thing about this book, it was that it was marketed to me, and it's written here, with lesbian necromancers explore space. 3 terms. Lesbians, yeah, the sapphic elements are very light and not really pertaining to the story. The kind of romance or romantic feelings are kind of like a switch, because they hate each other and then they love each other, and why did it switch perspectives so quickly? And then not really developed in the way that I would have wanted to. And then there is the necromancer, which was the coolest thing in the world. It was so cool. The necromancy was written so well. In space, there was nothing about space in this novel. I'm sorry, they just travel from a planet to another, and that's about it. And I think, and this is my idea, this book would have made a killer manga or anime. Not a TV show with real actors, nope. An animated TV show, possibly. An anime, yes. And manga, yes. It was so visually compelling, and the fights really reminded me of some other fights that I've seen in sci-fi mangas. It was so fucking cool, and I think the animated route is the way. As always, please let me know if you read any of these books and if our opinions differ, because I really like when we get to discuss in the comments, and I hope you had fun. So, as always, please check out in the description. There are some very important links, places where you can donate, petitions. So many things are going on in the world, so it takes 2 seconds, please, in the description. Also, socials, I have them, they're down below. I have a Twitter if you want to connect with me. It's a fun time there. I read a lot of cringy books, and I have a lot of opinions. If you want to know what I'm reading, I also have a Goodreads, and if you want to know what I'm planning on buying, I have an Amazon wishlist, even though I don't use Amazon. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye!